Gilbert's Repairs. Today we're going to tackle the rear suspension springs on this 2011 Citroen C3. Let's get on with it. See you there. Hello, hello. I can't do it. I can't do it. I will stop it when I break it. First job is to get the wheel off. Got the locking wheel nut adapter. Next, to jack the car up and safely put it on axle stands. I'm going to jack up the other side because we've got the other spring to do. We're going to do both rear coils. I'll jack up the other side. I'll cut back and come back to you in a minute. Okay, I'm back from the other side now. So I'm going to remove this wheel. The other side now is jacked up. The wheel's removed. The back end of the car is on axle stands. I'll show you that in a minute. Always good to place the wheel under the sill in case anything moves. You've got the protection of the wheel not coming down on your head. Okay, so here's the fault we're looking at. It's the broken rear spring. As you can see, this is the brake drum where the wheel attaches. And here's the suspension spring. And as you can see, the spring is snapped off. Very common fault. Very common fault on cars these days. The spring will come out now, but the new spring won't come out that easy. That one's only come out because it's broken. So there it is, as you can see. That's what it should be, but it's snapped off. So I'll now show you how to replace that component. Okay, what we've got to do is disconnect both shock absorbers, or we could do one side if we're only doing one, but we're doing both. So disconnect the shock absorber, which is this one. It's connected to the rear beam there. So to start with, we're going to give it a spray of WD-40 to make sure that it comes out easy. The way we remove that bolt is around the other side of the beam. I'll take you there now and show you where it is. We're underneath the car now, we're around the other side. That's the shock absorber that we were around the other side just now, and it's held on by the bolt that's in this hole there. You can just see the head of the bolt. It's an E16, I don't know what they're called, an E16 female torque socket, I'm going to guess. You put him on there. And then you undo that one. So I'll cut out and set you up again and then we can see. So there we go, we just undo this in an anti-clockwise direction. Oh, he's tight. There he goes. So we just wind that out all the way and the shock absorber should be detached from the rear beam. We will do this on the other side as well, on the other side of the car, because we are renewing both springs, and in my opinion you should always renew both springs across the axle. So we'll disconnect that and I'll disconnect the other side at the same time, but that'll be off camera. Just give it a little push, as you see there. Just gave that bolt a push. So I'll slide that through. As you can see, the bolt's out of the threads now. So I just need to slide the bolt through. I'll push up with a screwdriver. Whilst wiggling, there he goes. Heard him drop. So now the axle's moving independently from the shock. So the shock, that you can pull it away. So now I'll disconnect the other end, the other side of the car, and it'll allow this beam to bend downwards in a downward motion to put the new spring in. I'm around the other side of the car now, and I cannot get this bolt out from the shock absorber. I think it's because the rear beam is forcing downwards the weight of it. So I just need to take the weight off of that bolt. Yeah, so I've pushed him through. So now the shock absorber's free. So now if I let the jack down, the rear beam should drop fully down now and release the spring. Okay, so here we are underneath the car again. So if I just get a breaker bar or anything, I can jam in there. And now the beam, as you can see, can swing down. So you force this down and the spring will just come out like that. Look. And there's a rubber boot there, make sure that goes back on. This is what's on the bottom of the beam. There's a rubber mount there. That's just to prevent noise of the spring rattling in the beam. And then up the top, there's the cup. That's a rubber cup that the spring sits in up the top. I'll show you with the broken spring. It just goes into that cup. That's how it mounts. That's the way it locates. That's it. It's not screwed in, bolted in or nothing. And the same on the bottom with the broken spring. Just sits in there. And that's how it's done. You can see there's a lip, the raised section there. That stops the spring riding out. Alright, here's the springs. There's the new one. You should always check the parts of the same length before refitting, just in case you've got the wrong components. So a very similar length. And then the new spring, here we have the new spring. It's as basic as catching it in the top there. Put your bar in there, catch it on the top pocket. You bend it down. And that is it. As usual, I'd just like to put a bit of copper grease, just a bit of anti-seize, only a smear, just around the bolt. Just makes it easier in the future if you ever need to go in there. Just makes it easier to remove, prevents corrosion. Okay, so the next stage, we're going to try and jack up the beam whilst aligning this and then feeding that bolt through there to hold the shock on. So we'll have an attempt at that. So we're just jacking it up, compressing the spring, and then hopefully we should be able to align the shock absorber in there, the damper. We have to do this whilst holding that one. We have to look in the hole, see whether it's aligned. No, so I've got to go up further with the jack. Poking in through the hole, it's a little bit fiddly. There he goes. So I've just got him in. So now it's just a matter of wiggling. There he is. So he's pushed through. He's located on the damper. can see him on the other side. Yeah, so he's poking right through. I'll take it off the mount. As you can see in there, he's fully in. And he's now through the bottom of the damper. So I'll repeat the process on the other side and then we'll tighten it up. I'm about to tighten up the damper, which will then retain the springs in. Something you need to know, there's a rubber bush in the bottom of that damper. When you tighten up that bolt, it clamps that rubber bush. It clamps it in the position. So you need to jack this axle up into its ride height. So you need to jack it as if you've got the weight of the car. Jack it as if the weight of the car is acting down upon it in the compressed state. And jack it up. Nothing accurate, it's just up to where you think the wheel would be. Just started to take him off the axle stand slightly, so he is up where he should be. So now you're okay to tighten this bush. If you do not do this, within 12 months, it'll tear that bottom bush out of the dampers and you'll be doing them. So you have to do this, it's a critical step. So now that is really, effectively that's the job done. Both springs are in, both dampers are connected. So we can lower that down, put the wheels on and take it out on a test drive. So there we are, look. Spring in there, in the cups, with the damper connected. Just through there, that's how you connect the damper. And the same on this side. Same over there. No spring. And the damper connected. So that rear beam goes all the way across the back of the car, look. Right across to the other side. So that is your rear suspension. So we'll pop the wheels on now and take it for a spin. Back under the car, that's what the spring should look like in place with the wheel on, and as you can see, nice and secure. It's in the top cup and down in the bottom cup. So that's it. That is how you change the rear springs on a 2011 Citroen C3. I thought I'd just run through the tools that we use to do this job. The springs, the rear springs on the Citroen C3. It was 2011 car. We used the basic trolley jack to get the car up in the air to get the wheel off. The wheel brace to undo the wheel bolts to get the wheel out. Some axle stands to work on the car safely underneath. So that was all for the jacking. And then I did note it was a 17mm. If you were going to use a socket and a ratchet to get the wheel off, it's a 17mm socket. Basic hand tools, ratchet, extension piece to get through the rear beam, a screwdriver or a parallel punch to punch out the bolt. The Torx socket was an E16, E16 Torx. That's what's required. Hope this is of some help. Okay, there we go. The job's all completed. 2 rear springs on the Citroen C3. Quite a basic job. basic hand tools and a job that the home mechanic can take on his own. So if you want more of this, don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I'll catch you next time.